Welcome back, ink drinkers. Today is a little bit of an extra bonus episode, fun little update for you guys to check in on us on our 2026 reading goals and those accountabilities when it comes to that.
Yeah, and maybe for us to check in on ourselves. So at the beginning of the year, let's do a little reminder of what some of our goals were, and maybe we can go through them as we check in with them.
Yes.
So as far as total books, my goal for the year was 100 books in January. And I believe at the end of Q1, I was at 26-ish, and I've made it to 38. So I have read 38 books in the first half of the year, which puts me about 12 books behind. We'll see if I can catch up during the summer months. Usually I read a little bit more, and we are going on vacation this year. So hopefully I'll get some good reads in then.
My goal for the year was 125 books. Last time we did our little check-in, I was sitting at 25 books. I'm now sitting at 46. I couldn't tell you math-wise if I'm behind or ahead. Didn't do that calculation. Also hit a slump towards the end of the school year, but now teacher on summer break, definitely racking up the count while I can before we get back to school in August, because we all know how that month's reading goes for me. Whew.
So one of my other goals was to read more diversely. I usually try to pay attention to that anyway, but I actually had a count this year, and I wanted to read about 30% of my books to be diverse reads, which out of the 38 books that I have read, 6 are by diverse authors, which leaves me at 16%. So I have some catching up to do. I'm planning on making a strategy about this, but I don't have that quite yet. Not doing terrible, but also have a little bit of a ways to go.
Well, I'll make you feel a little bit better about my next goal then, because I told myself I was going to do all 12 books of the Agatha Christie Challenge this year. I'm sitting at a whopping 0. I've not touched that challenge. Apparently me and my love for Agatha Christie are just not vibing in 2026. I don't know what it is.
Hey, there are some things. My next 2 are not great, and they go along together. So, one of my goals at the beginning of the year was to track more consistently. I used to be really big into tracking on Storygraph and like the analytics and stuff. And last year, I kind of fell off about mid-year, and I have not got that back. I'm still not like when I tell you I read 38 books and 6 are diverse, I had to go dig through my audiobook records to figure out how many books I read, who their authors were, and like if they were diverse or not. So I haven't been tracking like I wanted to. I haven't, and to go along with that, I wanted to post more regularly and have 60% of my books posted for reviews. I don't think I've actually made a post since we did this last. So I need to get back on that, and maybe having myself like write a list and like a schedule of the books I'd like to review. I think actually no, I take that back. One of my standout books, which I'll get to later, I think I did post a TikTok on it because I loved it so much. So maybe I have done one, but I'm still not even close to 60%.
All right. So one of my next goals was to read 20 books that were published in this current year of 2026. I'm actually halfway through that goal.
Wow.
I've read 10 published in 2026. And I will actually get to talk about one of them in my standouts in a little bit. So, woo-woo.
Hey, piggybacking off of your yay, I'm doing it, I had a goal of discovering new authors for me, and my goal was 6 authors. And looking back at what I've read so far, I have completed that goal. Big check, because I have read 15 new authors this year.
Nice.
Hold on a second.
Very nice. So I also had the goal of new to me authors. I only had thrown 12 in there. I've read 17.
Woo!
I know. I was like, okay, like going through the list, I was like, wow, I didn't realize how many like actually new to me, authors. And some of those are within my 2026 new publishing as
Mhm.
well. So like they kind of double dipped in that goal. And then I was kind of going through that, looking at the diversity, and was pretty impressed with that. So next time I'm going to calculate kind of a percentage there just to piggyback off of your goal
Yeah,
and see where I'm at.
I think it's an important thing to pay attention to. Reading
Yeah.
more diversely and getting to engage with perspectives that are different from you, I
Yeah,
think it makes reading more fun.
absolutely.
Um, my next goal was about series to finish.
Uh-huh.
So I have several series, and there really is only an update for one of them. Stormlight Archive, I wanted to finish this year. I haven't read any more of it yet, but I plan to read Rhythm of War next month or this month in July. Um, we are going on vacation, and usually chunkers are a
Yes.
good time to read during the summer. So I have a plan, but I have not gotten there yet. My next series is Dungeon Crawler Carl, which I am buddy reading with my husband.
Mhm.
We did finish book 3
Woohoo!
and we have started book 4. So that one is moving right along. I don't know that we'll get through book 8 by the end of the year, but we are making progress. So I at least feel good about that. I have 3 more. I have not started reading anything from them. So, Red Rising, I would be reading book 2, and I hope to read that one this summer as well. But the last 2 series, the
Mhm.
Legend Born Cycle by Tracy Dion, I only have the last one to read, but I don't have a plan for that one yet. And Black Witch Chronicles by Lori Forrest, I have several. I think I have 2 books and
Mhm.
at least I think 1 novella to read for that, and I have no plans for that one yet. So right now I have my sights set on the next Stormlight book, um, and the next Red Rising book, and then continuing my buddy read with my husband.
Yeah. So my final two goals were to add nonfiction to my reading. I haven't done it yet, but I do have a couple on my TBR that I'm super interested in. I have a feeling that those are going to be ones that hit me towards like the later fall time after I get through
Yeah,
spooky season.
fair.
I don't know why, but that's usually when I get in the mood for nonfiction. And then my other goal with your series was to do my Throne of Glass reread. I'm doing
Mm.
pretty decent with it. I have finished Air of Fire reread and my Queen of Shadows reread, and I have barely scratched now. I couldn't fall asleep the other night and started doing my tandem of Empire and Tower. So I'm like, you know, a percent into either one of them since I'm doing the tandem of those. So I feel like I'm making pretty decent progress to get through the end of that particular series. Now, I had said to myself, like, if you finish that, maybe you could do a lot more of the Moss rereads before the release comes out. So we'll
Mhm.
see if I make it there. But that was like the asterisk. That wasn't the actual goal. The goal was just Throne of Glass this year. So I feel pretty good about that goal in particular.
Well, it seems like you're getting along with your goals a lot better than I am, and also it's probably a lot easier to find that information with tracking.
Yeah, I do
Um,
love my little statistics.
I need to get better into a better routine. I think
Yeah.
if I did more of a routine, it would be better. But I think that brings us to our standouts.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. All right. So, one of my standouts is a 2026 publication. It's a sequel.
Oh.
So, if you haven't read Shield of Sparrows,
Oh.
I had to put Rights of the Starling in here. It's the second book in the Shield of Sparrows
Mhm.
trilogy. The third one comes out later this year.
Right, right.
I'm very excited. Um, the first book in this one left me wanting just a little bit. Don't come at me. I gave the second book a try, and I'm so glad that I did. In the first book, you get Odessa and Ransom, and I didn't love necessarily the storyline as much, but this one you follow them some more as they unravel some like truths behind history and an ancient journal, and they have to battle these monsters and the politics that are binding the world together. It's one of those stories where like they have to like teach each other to accept things that were taught to them that aren't
Oh.
necessarily true. And there's a new perspective of a character in this one of Caspia that you get along the way as well, that just added a really great vibe and twist to it that I absolutely devoured and loved. So if you haven't picked up this series yet, and you love a romantasy, yes, but this one honestly is more fantasy than it is the romance. Um, this would be your cup of tea.
I really need to pick up that series.
I love it.
I also have a 2026 read. I
Ooh.
actually just read
Oh,
this.
yes, you did.
Mad Babel by Sally Hepworth. Mandy laughs at me
I
all
do.
the
I
time.
do.
We'll be in a bookstore and we'll be walking around and looking, especially like in the mystery section, and she'll be like, here's another one, because I absolutely devour books that are about old people, usually in a like mystery setting.
Yep.
There's an elderly detective, it's probably on my shelf. So this book, she's not a detective. We follow Elsie Mabel Fitzpatrick. She's an 81-year-old curmudgeon. She minds her own business. She lives in Melbourne, Australia. She lives on her street. She doesn't bother anybody. And yes, she's this 81-year-old woman, but she has a past where she was Mad Mabel, Australia's youngest convicted murderer. And there's on her street, a little girl moves in and it insists on becoming friends, like knocks on her door in the morning and wakes her up. The little girl's name is Persephone. She's 7 years old.
Wait, is this a
And
Kevin and Carl moment from Up?
kind of, yeah. He's not trying to help her. She's just butting into her
Okay.
life. And um so we get this like my grumpy sunshine heart. I know that's a typical romance trope, but I love this like elderly curmudgeon, small child bringing
Yeah.
light to their life. And we learn more and more throughout the story of how she became Mad Mabel and like what her story is.
Yeah.
And there's also an element where she's being interviewed um, a, for a podcast. People find her because another one of her neighbors drops dead. So it's like people suspect her of this murder. What happened? What kind of murder was she convicted of as a child? And I absolutely ate it up. I love the relationship between Elsie and Persephone. And if you love a grumpy sunshine platonic dynamic, and a little bit of like mixed timeline, you
Mm.
should definitely look at this. I think this would also be a great summer read because it's kind of lighter, but you get that little bit of mystery to it too.
All right. The next one I'm going to pull out is one that you and I have both read, The Conductors
Ooh.
by Nicole Glover. So this book takes place in post Civil War Philadelphia. You're following Hetty and Benji Rhodes. They are former Underground Railroad conductors, but you find them after the fact, and they are a couple solving crimes, but there is celestial magic involved. You get a past and a present storyline with this one. The past shows them within the Underground Railroad as conductors, actually leading some of the present day characters to safety, to freedom. And then the present storyline where they are solving the murder of one of those individuals slash old friend. Um, it's great because you get the murder mystery aspect, you get the fantastical aspect with the magic. And what really sold this one for me outside of the murder mystery is Hetty and Benji's relationship. I
Mm.
thought that their story in particular was very different than any other that I had read. And this was a delightful surprise. So if you haven't read this one, I would highly recommend this as a diverse read, as a different perspective, and for just a little bit different between mystery and fantasy, like diving together.
Also with the historical, I really love the historical aspects
Yes.
of it, and like how they weave both the further past and the present for the time in that
Mm-hmm.
book. It was really cool to see how that wove together and
Yeah.
how she used a lot of those elements to help like reinforce the magic system and kind of the situation that they're in. So
Yeah.
I would agree. That's a great one. Um Another fun like romp type of book is Mayhem and the Mortal by Shanora Williams. This book is to me like a mix between a romantasy and like a true like fantasy adventure story, which really drew me to it. You follow Zara, who lives, she's immortal, and she lives in this like town, and her sister gets cursed basically by like an evil sorcerer guy, and so she has to go on this quest to find this particular type of stone to get the curse off of her sister. And she meets up with, you guessed it, like a shadow daddy who is going, she pays him to take her to the shallows, which is, she even mentions the shallows. Everybody's like, oh my God, who's going to take you there? Why would you go
Oh.
there? And so she goes on this quest. Not only are there magical people, but there's like beings like minotaurs and centaurs and different things like that that give you more of that like traditional fantasy and like adventure story feel. There is a romance, there is spice, but I didn't feel like it was overwhelming. And I feel like there were so many great like adventure moments and tense
Mm-hmm.
moments and endearing moments. This was such a great read. I also think this would be great for summer because of the adventure aspect of it. But this one really just stood out because I felt like it was a romantasy that had like a, I would classify it as a romantasy, but it had more like a fresh, fun take to it. So if that sounds, if you want like a little bit of a break from the traditional, like um traditional, but like the trend of like a warring world and we're trying to overturn a government type of romantasy, I would go for this one because it really is more of like a quest.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of overturning governments, my next one, Foundry I mean,
Yes.
and let's be honest. I think Robert Jackson Bennett is becoming one of my new favorite authors because I've already talked about how much I love the Tainted Cup series. I went back to his backlog and picked up Foundry Side and loved it probably just as much. It's very different from Tainted Cup series though. This one is political rebellion. It's fantasy. It's action packed. There is thieves and magic. Um, the magic system in this one is it's called scribing, and it's kind of like coding written into objects to kind of trick them into thinking that they are things that they're not, or they can do things that aren't the state that in which they are. You're following our female main character, Asantia. She is a thief and ends up going through um, for a client and steals this key, but this key is something that she is not expecting it to be. And basically, the higher bees of the merchant council, the merchant houses, want this because it could undo literally everything. It can open anything. And fun fact, the key can talk to her. And so there are repercussions that are massive that could incur. She becomes the target for this, powerful object, and all sorts of shenanigans ensue. And there's a very unlikely but wonderful found family that comes from this. And I ate this up. I've already bought the sequel to continue reading. So if you're a fan of his and you haven't read this series yet, or maybe you've read this one and you haven't read his other one yet, I can't speak highly enough about his writing.
I have read that entire trilogy and I would agree with that. Um, this one has a little bit of a like political underbelly. It is Queen of Faces by Petra Lord. This book is so interesting and different from anything that I've read. If you A frame of reference is if you have ever seen the Netflix show Altered Carbon. It's where it's a futuristic TV show where like your consciousness can be uploaded into different bodies. I say that to preface this because this book follows Annabelle Gage, and she lives in a world where, like, you are born into a body, but you can also be like transferred into different, like, synthetic bodies. And Annabelle wants to go to this prestigious academy, Paragon Academy, because you can get a new body from that, and her body is breaking down. She lives in this decrepit body. Her original body, she got sick as a child, and she has a form of magic, and she tries to use it to steal herself a body and gets caught. And
Mm.
once she's caught, that kind of ruins her chances. And the way she's caught, she kind of gets swept up into a life of crime and intrigue. And she and a group of other people have to kind of like uncover what seedy underthings are going on in this academy and with their government. Um, I think this book does a really good job of potentially getting you to understand what it would be like to be a trans person, because her body does not always match her gender, and other characters in the book are in the same situation, and they do it so seamlessly.
Mm.
Petra Lord herself is a trans woman, and the way that she like gives you that perspective without like really pointing it out is
Mm.
so cool. And like just how different the interactions with the characters are, and the transferring of their um consciousness and things like that is so cool. The magic system is also really intricate and interesting, very individualistic, almost like
Mm.
each person has their own type of power. But I love an outlaw and an intrigue and trying to figure out how, you know, things may be a little corrupt. I cannot wait. There is another book coming out. I don't know if it's at the end of this year or early next year, but for a different perspective, and a unique type of magic system and story, but with a little sci-fi thrown in, I would definitely pick this one up.
All right, my final standout, which I'm still trying to get you to read. His Face is the Sun, by Michelle. I always mess up her name. Michelle Jabis Corpora. I probably botched that. This is the first book in a YA series. It does not feel YA at all, though. Like I had to like check myself multiple times that I was reading a YA book when doing this. It's set in an ancient Egypt-inspired world. There are 4 different POVs in this story that are all tied together. You see that the Egyptian empire is kind of decaying. There's a dark prophecy that is unfolding, um, and the 4 POVs that are eventually all tied together seem very unlikely in how they are all going to come together in the end. But you get all sorts of different aspects in this. You get royalty, you get rebellion, you get Egyptian gods, you get tomb robbing, like everything that you're looking for. It's adventure packed. It feels very true to Egyptian history and, the gods and the folklore. And it's very summery feeling for sure, being
Hmm.
set where it is. But this is one that I ate up, especially because of the characters, like the 4 different characters that you get. They're so different, and they all stand for very different things, but want the same thing in the end. And so it's very intriguing to see where this series is going to end up taking its twists and turns. I have recently started the sequel, She Knows All the Names, and cannot wait to see where this author takes it.
My last one is one that has been all over Bookstagram, Book Talk, everywhere, and that's Yesteryear by Carol Claire Burke. I picked this up after kind of some arm twisting.
Mm-hmm.
We both had heard about it, and we went to an author event for Jessie Q.
Yes.
Sutanto, and somebody asked what she was reading right now, and she said Yesteryear,
Mm-hmm.
and that she was eating it up. And then we looked at each other and we're like, oh, I guess. And then we found out the book club we go to at our local indie bookstore was reading it, and we're like, okay, it's gonna happen now. Um, but this book follows Natalie Heller Mills, and
Mm-hmm.
she is a tradwife influencer on, TikTok, Instagram, social media. She has millions of followers, from scratch, farm to table. We live on a ranch, and we I have my beautiful children, and it's all a facade. She has
Mm-hmm.
nannies, she has producers, they have ranch hands, and so you kind of see this duality of
Mm-hmm.
what she is portraying online and how she makes her money versus like what is actually happening behind the scenes. But then one morning she wakes up and nothing is as it seems like as it should be. It's like her kids and her husband and her house, but everything's wrong, and no electricity.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fire in the kitchen to keep it warm, and she thinks she's in 1855. So you start this like kind of mystery aspect. How did she get
Yeah.
here? Is she in 1855? What is going on? You get to see some of her past and how she became an influencer and things like that. And it was just at so many different points. I had no idea where this was going. Um, when I got to the end, I was like, what did I just
Mm-hmm.
read? I couldn't even tell you what my true feelings are on it because I still think about this a lot.
Yeah.
But it, if you haven't picked it up, I would give it a shot. I'm
Yeah.
so glad I did. It had
Mm-hmm.
so much perspective, so much to say. And I just like I said, I think about it all the time, and I can see why it's getting so much hype lately.
Yeah, I second that because I feel like we were questioning it a lot and got a lot of different signs from a lot of different people around us reading it and asking us. And I'm glad I picked that one up because it's twisty,
It,
that's for sure.
it's definitely a ride. So those were our standouts.
Yeah.
I have read way more than that, and I'm sure at some point I will post those reviews, I promised, on other things that I have read. But how are you guys doing on your goals? Do you feel like you're ahead, behind, barely hanging on? Maybe we need to shift some things. And what books would you guys recommend to us that you've read?
Looking forward to hearing from you guys, and we will catch you next time.